This is not Athens, nor anywhere in Greece, but somewhere in Metro Manila, the premier metropolis of the Philippines. These are the railways in the outskirts of Makati City, possibly the richest city in the archipelago. This is not a proper documentary, but a speculative documentary. I simply speak as a student of continental theory. Take what I say with a grain of salt. This film was amateurishly but earnestly shot, written and directed by Noli Mana E. If you could read signages, you'd know a terminal of metaphors is nearby. Consider the Buendia train station. No sign of any metaphor just yet. The metaphor, as always, is delayed. But it's still punctual in Filipino time. The body is already elsewhere. Everyone else is measuring proximity and distance. As Henry Lefebvre would put it, this is the sociology of boredom. Hand-wringing indicates travel is not for recreation or pastime. It indicates the anxiety of the everyday. Some waiting passengers gossip, a manifestation of the Malayan instinct. To kill time, to kill the anxious anticipation. Poised to collapse, the legs capitulate to anxiety. Anxiety, in anticipation of what Michel de Certeau calls the incarceration by the train. The incarceration by the metaphor. The waiting passenger must limber up or do whatever is necessary to keep the trepidation of the train from his mind. Let me digress with the surplus images of lower torsos. Of lower extremities. Down to the shoes. Always the shoes. The shoes. A history of shoes is a history of movement. Of decoded flows. Of conquests. Of war machines. Of colonizations. Of deterritorializations. Deleuze and Guattari would agree. Where do the unshod go? The unshod are immobile vectors. Territorialized. Only the shoes can speak. The unshod, Spivak might exclaim, are the subalterns. Digression aside, here comes a much-needed metaphor. Albeit way behind schedule. In this country, things are defined by speeds and slownesses. But perhaps not what Deleuze and Guattari had in mind. The cannery is about to come to a stop. It is almost ready for service. In the thick sauce, the sardines shall marinate. A fine kettle of fish, isn't it? Here stops this module of imprisonment. An immobility. To be pigeonholed inside the train. But at each stop, the rubbing together of evasive bodies. Of clammy skin and stale breaths. The fluster of commotion. The felt discomfort. The stolen stares. Here, as in many other cities, the invasion and loss of private spaces characterize the transgressive train ride. Even the not-so-squeamish may wish to be wrapped in protective cellophane, to be clean and sterile at trip's end. There is something at once incarcerational and navigational about railroad travel, writes Michel de Certeau. Like Jules Verne's ships and submarines, it combines dreams with technology. But here the windows remind us of a panoptic prison, barred by a gridwork of iron. The illusion of a theatrical machinery, a primum mobile of wondrous cityscapes, is stillborn. Something is not right. The train has stopped indefinitely. But if one has lived here long enough, that's par for the course. It's not just the division of labor that has made work less appealing. What has caused work to become less of an ethic is not just the working conditions but the ordeal of traveling to work. In this country where entropy is the rule rather than the exception, trains are subject to all manner of delays. Derailments. Mechanical parts wearing out. Railway repairs. Accidents. Unscheduled clean-ups. And what one might call the red tape of spatialization. No one has been run over this time. Just utility men repairing and riveting the tracks unaware of the train's arrival. There. The metaphor is on its way. Glorious, isn't it? A majestic view, the stately procession of the train, the flank of evergreen trees, and the healthy color of grass. No hint at all of urine or fecal matter smeared on the train, as it sometimes happens. Just a proud and regal blue and red. Perhaps with a touch of the industrial aesthetic. But is it all there is to it? Illusion and truth. Power and helplessness. Henry Lefebvre would interject. But this is one rung lower than the everydayness of social classes he wrote about. These are the subalterns inhabiting the margins of the train stations. The lumpenproletariat, as Marx called them. Some are vagabonds, some without any means of living. This is no plane of imminence. What you see are the mattresses discarded by the rich. The homeless on the margins of the railways have territorialized on the refuse of this affluent city. Here is Joel Barcou, as he identifies himself. He is more of the vagabond of Marx than the nomad of Deleuze. He proudly shows us old currency from many countries. Perhaps to indicate his freedom of movement. But what he has in hand are old, demonetized banknotes. Oblivious, he explains the vast powers of his talismanic banknotes, which in truth have the value of play money. Letha Ulasu is better off. A vendor at the station. She dances with a limp around her merchandise. She hates the machinations of memory, in the manner of Deleuze. Her anti-memory started when she was left hospitalized by a sports car. She smiles to the camera through it all. Alias Boy has a screen name. But the last film he has seen was Die Hard, many years ago. His days are spent collecting copper wire, which he sells at 260 pesos per kilo. He also collects old newspaper, plastic and anything worth reselling at the junk shop nearby. In the margins of this city, he has territorialized on the socius of the rich. What the railways truly signify is barren life. What they offer are discards of the rich. The refuse that chokes all manner of life at the margins. At best, grudgingly provide a living. These are not planes of imminence. There are no smooth spaces here, but striated spaces. The day is ending. Even this train appears weary. Divested of vigor, huffing and puffing black smoke. Within this metaphor, tired workers. Alienated by inhuman work and the long way home. So much expended labor power in a single workday. So much unpaid labor. Hunger, in the margins, is no less urgent. Already faint, this denizen of the railway station digs for his dinner. Nothing is too lowly for complaining bellies. Here he must root out what grows among the mercury leaked by busted light bulbs. Toxic chemicals from burned tires. Melted plastic. He is unmindful of his blighted surroundings. What is everyone's makeshift outhouse? Finally dinner. Sweet potatoes. Rhizomes. Certainly not the abstract rhizome envisioned by Deleuze and Guattari. But rhizomes the size of a small fist. Rhizomes that can't stop a locomotive. But the pangs of hunger. The sun flares its last rays of the day. After all the blighted images of privation, hunger and tiredness, the spectacle of sunlight. The metaphor of nature, a reprieve, a respite. Everyone is heading home. The benediction of the sun does not discriminate against anyone. Even the chrome of motorists. Sunlight, on the contrary, must already be reserved to them. That wouldn't surprise anyone in this country of inequalities. Meanwhile, the frantic rush home for those who avail themselves of the metaphor. The metaphor is both reliable and unreliable. The metaphor is fast and cheap. But at what inhuman cost? At what dehumanizing expense? Spare the worn imagery of the cramped sardines. More like the cattle on the way to the slaughter. But where is the dispensation? Where? What then is the best of all metaphors? Can Michel de Certeau's practice teach us something new? What can Deleuze and Guattari and their nomad offer us? How does one achieve a line of flight? Can Raoul van Eyck lead the way? How does one read the revolution of everyday life? Guattari what can Henry Lefebvre, the sociologist, finally advise us? How does one achieve a line of flight? Contribute to address this Raoul van Eyck abstractions? How does one read the revolution of everyday life? Metaphor what can Henry Lefebvre, the sociologist, finally advise us? Abstractions to address this abstractions. Metaphor for everyday life. Metaphor for everyday life.